Welcome, everyone. Okay, let's get right into it. If you're setting your sights on the monumental challenge of the NEET 2027 exam, you are exactly where you need to be. Today, we're bringing you a highly strategic explainer covering a proven blueprint straight from an AIMS student. Look, the stakes are incredibly high, and honestly, guesswork just isn't going to cut it. So let's unpack this roadmap so you can secure that medical seat.
Okay, let's dive into this. We're going to unpack 5 main things today. First up, why biology is the ultimate NEET game changer. Then we'll look at the passive reading trap, how to master statement-based questions, the power of the NCERT question bank, and finally, how to tame those incredibly volatile biology facts.
Starting right off with Section 1, Biology as the absolute NEET game changer.
So biology is not just another subject on your roster, right? It's literally the undisputed heavyweight champion of the NEET exam. It makes up a massive 50% chunk of your total possible score. Think about that for a second. If you're aiming for those elite top-tier scores, and we're talking 600, 650, or even 660 plus, you absolutely cannot compromise here. A single careless mistake in biology costs you just as much as a complex miscalculation in physics. Mastering biology is what ultimately builds the foundation of your rank. Literally half your success depends purely on this one subject.
And we aren't just making this up. We're pulling from the real-world experience of Anurag. He's a third-year MBBS student at AIMS Gargpur and a mentor at Joshi Mentorship. He secured a massive score of 677 marks and landed an All-India rank of 1877. This blueprint is built on the experience of someone who actually walked the path. He didn't just study hard, he studied smart to achieve that elite status. He cracked the code, and we're using his exact insights to help you do the same.
Moving on to Section 2. This is a big one, the passive reading trap.
And this brilliantly illustrates where so many students go wrong. The fatal flaw in most study routines is this massive shift in strategy between subjects. For physics and chemistry, students naturally lean into aggressive question solving, right? They crunch numbers, apply formulas, and really test their boundaries. But then they pivot to biology, and the strategy completely shifts to passive, endless reading. It's treated purely as a reading exercise. People think, oh, it's all theory, so I'll just highlight my NCERT textbook over and over again. But saving active problem solving only for other subjects, that's a massive strategic error that can absolutely cost you your dream college.
So, you might be wondering, is just reading the NCERT book 2 or 3 times really enough? The short answer is an absolute no. While reading the text is undeniably vital, you have to read between the lines, relying on superficial reading alone is going to leave you completely vulnerable on exam day. What happens is your brain gets familiar with a visual layout of the page, which kind of tricks you into feeling like you've mastered the concept. But familiarity is not mastery. When the examiner twists a single word, that superficial familiarity shatters.
Which brings us right to Section 3, mastering statement-based questions.
To really decode the textbook, you must practice true, false, and statement-based questions. Why? Because the examiners know exactly how to trick you. They'll take a standard line straight out of the NCERT textbook, slightly mend the wording, maybe change a can to a cannot, or swap a some with an all. It's sneaky. And if you haven't actively practiced identifying these specific tweaks, your brain will gloss right over them. You'll read the tweak statement, think, oh yeah, I remember seeing this in the book, and confidently mark the wrong answer. You have to train your brain to spot these minor but deadly traps. So, how do we fix this?
Let's break down the actionable active recall tactics that top rankers like Anurag use to bulletproof their memory. First, ditch the open book review. Close the book and actively try to recall what you just read. Force your brain to fetch that information. Second, pick one specific highlighter color, let's say a bright, obnoxious orange, and use it exclusively for confusing statements or questions you got wrong. Do not use it for general highlighting. Finally, when you're short on time right before an exam, you don't need to reread the entire chapter. You just efficiently revise those specific highlighted mistakes. It ensures you never make the same error twice.
But honestly, knowing you need to practice these specific questions leads to a very practical challenge. Where do you actually find perfectly framed, line-by-line NCERT questions that mimic the real exam without overwhelming you with a bunch of out-of-syllabus fluff?
That perfectly sets up Section 4, the NCERT question bank from Joshi Mentorship. Now, what's really interesting about this resource are a few standout features. First is the sheer scale. It offers over 500 questions per chapter. That's rigorous bulk practice that forces you to engage with every possible angle of a topic. Second, it actually covers all three subjects: physics, chemistry, and biology. Yes, even the physics theory from the NCERT that most students completely ignore is covered here. Third, it's curated by current AIMS mentors who know exactly how the actual paper is set. And most importantly, every single question is derived exactly from NCERT lines. No wasted time on irrelevant data. You're practicing exactly what you're going to be tested on.
And the best part? It's priced at just 299 rupees per subject for the entire year. It's a highly accessible price point that completely removes the financial barrier to getting elite-level, rigorous bulk question practice.
To put that into perspective, those traditional, massive, bloated prep books can easily cost anywhere from 2,000 to 4,000 rupees. And worse, they're often filled with out-of-syllabus questions that are just going to confuse you anyway. On the flip side, this targeted AIMS Mentor Question Bank PDF is just 299 rupees. It streamlines your study process without breaking the bank.
Okay, finally, Section 5. Let's talk about taming volatile biology facts.
We're talking about those high-risk, incredibly volatile topics. You know the ones. Those dense areas loaded with pure data, numerical values, and complex sequences. Stuff like DNA fingerprinting or the Human Genome Project. Even after multiple read-throughs and tons of practice questions, these specific details will inevitably slip from your memory. They're just highly volatile. If the examiner changes a single numerical value in a statement about the Human Genome Project and you haven't locked it down perfectly, you're going to lose those marks. Let's move to and see how this builds into an actual strategy. Here is your step-by-step guide to creating cheat sheets for this volatile info. Step 1, identify the facts. As you read and test yourself, pinpoint the exact data you keep forgetting. Step 2, do not just highlight it again. Write it down on a separate, dedicated sheet of paper. Step 3, revise the sheet immediately before every single mock test you take and right before any major study session. You got to keep it fresh. And step 4, when you reach that super stressful year-end review phase, you won't have time to reread the entire textbook. At that point, you rely solely on these concentrated sheets for your final polish. By the end of the year, you'll have the broader concepts mastered through question practice, and these sheets will perfectly bridge the gap for those tiny, easily forgotten details.
So there you have it. We've broken down the AIMS blueprint. We've seen exactly why biology is the ultimate game changer, how to escape the passive reading trap, the sheer power of statement-based active recall, and how to tame those volatile facts once and for all. Now I want to leave you with a direct challenge for your very next study session. Will you just read the lines today, or are you actually going to master them? The blueprint is entirely in your hands now. It's time to stop passively turning pages and start actively securing your rank. Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer, and I highly encourage you to go ahead and immediately implement these strategies into your daily routine.